Merry Aniplex Christmas, everyone. Sober on E of G&A Reviews here with a Servant Spotlight for Best Book, Nursery Rhyme. We'll be examining her stats and skills, as well as going over pointers on how to utilize her effectively, and an overall grade comparing her to how she stacks up to the other 4-star servants. I also have a spotlight up for the other new Christmas servant, Jack the Ripper, linked in the description, so please do check that out when you get the chance. Now, on to Nursery Rhyme stats. Nursery Rhyme's max HP of 11,882 is average among the 4-star casters and near the top tier among all 4 stars in general. As a caster though, her attack suffers. Her 8,629 attack might be average among her fellow 4-star casters, but it ranks near the bottom among all 4 stars in general. Taking a look at her skills, Nursery Rhyme's first skill is Self-Modification rank A, which increases crit strength for 3 turns between 20 to 50%, and increases critical star gather rate for 3 turns between 300 to 600%, both depending on level. Her second skill is Morph rank A+, which increases her defense for 1 turn by 30%, and then applies a second defense increase between 10 to 30%, and increases debuff resist for 3 turns between 20 to 40%, depending on level. Her final skill is Once Upon a Time rank A, which increases her Noble Phantasm gauge between 20 to 40%, and restores her HP between 1000 to 2000 depending on level, and also removes all debuffs from herself. Moving on to her passives, her only passive is Territory Creation rank A, which increases her arts card effectiveness by 10%. Taking a look at her deck and Noble Phantasm, Nursery Rhyme has a full arts deck with a quick arts buster and an arts Noble Phantasm. Her Noble Phantasm is Nursery Rhyme. It deals heavy damage to all enemies depending on level, and has a chance to decrease their Noble Phantasm charge depending on overcharge, and also increases their defense for 3 turns by 20%. And there is an interlude for the Noble Phantasm that further increases the damage modifier. Taking a closer look at Nursery Rhyme's cards, we see that her quick card hits 3 times, her arts card hits 3 times, her buster hits once, and her extra attack hits 3 times. She has a Noble Phantasm gain rate of 0.54% and a star rate of 10.8. Overall, that means she has high Noble Phantasm gain and bad star generating, mostly due just to the number of arts cards in her deck. Nursery Rhyme is something new to the game. She is a crit caster, and that means Nursery Rhyme is capable of some pretty high damage for a caster. Her first skill, Self-Modification, makes up for the caster class's terrible star weight by increasing her star absorb by up to 600%, and also increasing her crit damage by up to 50%. It's exactly the same as Nobu's Demon King skill, and as such, it's equally as powerful since it also is what enables Nursery Rhyme's damage, and with a 5-turn cooldown, you have it active for the majority of the battle. Once Upon a Time is another strong skill for Nursery Rhyme that combines Rapid Divine Words and Disengage into a single skill, and while the Noble Phantasm charge on the skill itself is good, the debuff removal and the heal is a little more important because of the synergy it has with her second skill, Morph. Nursery Rhyme's Morph skill grants her a huge 60% defense buff for a turn and 40% debuff resist for 3 turns. Not many servants, including tanks, can give themselves a 60% defense buff, and that alone is enough to save her from direct hits from a few Noble Phantasms. And the combo of a high debuff resist and debuff removal also means that Nursery Rhyme is very difficult to debuff, which is worth remembering for some later challenge quests. Overall, all 3 of her skills are pretty strong, but Self-Modification should take the top priority simply because she's still an offensive caster and her crits are her bread and butter. Next, focus on leveling Once Upon a Time because it just gives too many bonuses to ignore. And finally, level Morph, as while it is a good skill, it isn't as versatile or powerful as Once Upon a Time. Unfortunately, Nursery Rhyme's Noble Phantasm isn't anything noteworthy. It's just an AoE that deals some pretty bad damage pre-interlude and some mediocre damage post-interlude. Though because she has so many arts cards and her Once Upon a Time skill and her ability to crit often, her Noble Phantasm is pretty spammable, making it effective at wave clearing and farming. As an offensive caster, when Nursery Rhyme is able to get crit stars and arts brave chains, she's pretty powerful. However, like all offensive casters, her glaring flaw will forever be that she is a caster. If she doesn't have a steady stream of crit stars, or when self-modification is not active, she is essentially dead weight and doing absolutely no damage. And it's very difficult to consistently feed her stars and manage her skill cooldown, considering she's a pretty bad star generator herself and completely non-self-sufficient. Like a real-life child, she requires a lot of pampering and babysitting, and she also suffers from the problem of not really offering anything to the team that she's a part of outside of just crit damage because she has no support skills. Nursery Rhyme has to be the offensive focal point of whatever team you use her on because she can't help anyone else out. It would also help if, as an offensive caster, she had maybe an attack buff or two outside of the crit damage, just to empower her arts cards and her noble phantasm. And this problem is kind of exasperated by the fact that most crit team supports with buffs, like Atlanta and Shisho, are quick support servants, whereas Nursery Rhyme is the odd girl out as an arts crit caster. And when it comes to supporting Nursery Rhyme, she absolutely needs a crit star generator on the team, otherwise she's pretty much useless. Jack is the prime candidate for this, not only because they're just super cute together, but because Jack is one of the few servants that can consistently feed crit stars to Nursery Rhyme. Gil, Okita, Atlanta, and Hassan are your other crit support options, although the archers might hog some of those stars. And Nursery Rhyme doesn't need much help surviving thanks to her heal and her morph skill, but John, Mosh, and Media Lily don't hurt, especially considering Mosh can further buff her defenses. And finally, Nursery Rhyme will absolutely need someone there to buff her non-crit damage. Tamamo is ideal for this since she's also good at providing healing, noble phantasm spam, and she can even reduce the cooldown on self-modification, which will enable Nursery Rhyme to stay in crit damage mode longer. Waver and Hans and Mozart are also good options. Mozart in particular though is pretty good since post-interlude he gets a Star Bomb skill that will automatically grant 100% crit chance to everyone along with his arts buff, both of which Nursery Rhyme appreciates dearly. In her Bondcraft Essence is Wonderland, it increases the crit damage of all allies by 15% and boosts HP recovery amount by 10% for everyone. This is a fantastic craft essence on her since it complements both her self-modification and Once Upon a Time skills. And if you pair her up with Jack and Tamamo, which in my opinion is the ideal team for her, Jack and Nursery Rhyme will be critting even harder, while Tamamo will be able to heal for even more, as will Jack. Other than that, another ending is the best craft essence for her since that buffs both her arts and crit damage considerably. It does everything Nursery Rhyme needs and was pretty much made for her. If you don't have that, then Formal Craft will do, as will Gem Mage Craft and Gudao. A quick note though, I recommend Gudao over Moonlight Fest simply because Nursery Rhyme will do more with the bonus Noble Phantasm damage over the increased star drop rate, since her star drop rate is pretty bad to begin with. You're not going to make it much better. If you just want to use her to farm and spam her Noble Phantasm, then just go with Little Halloween Devil, Prisma Cosmos, or Divine Banquet. My overall opinion of Nursery Rhyme is that she's an interesting experiment with a damn good skill set. Both her self-modification and Once Upon a Time are top tier skills that'll do a phenomenal job of complementing her playstyle. And for an offensive caster, once Nursery Rhyme hits her groove, she can do some serious damage. But she is weighed down by being dead weight whenever she isn't in those ideal circumstances. She has no support or team utility skills, and she's very demanding in terms of the support she requires from others since she's in a peculiar position of needing assistance for both crit supports and art supports. Overall though, my rating for her is a B-. I originally was going to rate her a C+, but despite all of her many drawbacks, she's a one-of-a-kind servant. Her skill set is amazing if very selfish, and probably most important of all, her debuff resist and removal in a decent offensive servant with noble phantasm spamming ability makes her just too valuable in challenge quests and later story missions to ignore. And those are my thoughts on Nursery Rhyme. A very divisive servant for sure, and probably one of the hardest ones I ever had to rate. Let me know what you all think of her. I know some of you will rate her much higher than what I did, and some of you will rate her much lower, so I'm interested in hearing your reasoning for it. Also, please check out Jack the Ripper's Spotlight, also up on the channel today. The link will be in the description. And don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and consider subscribing if you really enjoyed the video. And with all that said, I'll see you all in the next Spotlight. Soberoni out, later, and have a very merry Aniplex Christmas.